Commander Zethkri stood before the Galactic Council with his 4 arms crossed behind his back. His blue skin had turned pale with worry, and his large black eyes showed the fear that every member of his species now felt. The council chamber was huge, filled with representatives from dozens of different alien races. But today, they all looked at him with the same expression. They thought he was asking them to approve a suicide mission. "Honored Council," Zethkri began, his voice steady despite his fear. "My homeworld of Vorthon Prime is dying. The plague has already killed 3 billion of my people. Our best scientists say we have maybe 6 months before our entire species goes extinct." The council members shifted in their seats. Some looked sad, others looked uncomfortable. Everyone knew about the plague that was spreading through Vorthon space. It was unlike anything they had seen before. It didn't just kill the body, it somehow destroyed the victim's ability to think and reason first. "We have found only one possible cure," Zethkri continued. "There are rare minerals called quantum, crystals that our scientists believe can stop the plague, but these crystals exist in only one place in the known galaxy." He paused and looked around the chamber. He could see that many of the council members already knew what he was going to say next. "Human space," he said quietly. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives began talking loudly to each other in dozens of different languages. Some stood up from their seats, others made sounds of fear or anger. The Graxian ambassador actually hissed, showing his sharp teeth. Council Speaker Mordan, an elderly Centaurian with gray fur, hit his staff against the floor 3 times. The chamber slowly became quiet again. "Commander Zethkri," Morden said in his deep voice, "you know what you are asking. No ship has entered human space in over 300 years. No ship that has tried has ever returned." Zethkri nodded. "I know the stories, honored speaker, but my people are dying. We have no choice." Dr. Kira Len, the expedition's xenobiologist, stood up from her seat in the visitors section. She was a tall, thin Aqualian with smooth gray skin and large eyes that could see in many different types of light. She had spent years studying the mystery of human space. "If I may speak, honored council," she said, "I have studied every record we have about the humans. 300 years ago, they were newcomers to our galaxy. They were not very advanced compared to most of our species. They had slower-than-light ships and basic weapons. They seemed friendly enough and established colonies on 47 different worlds." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. A large sphere of space near the outer rim glowed red. Then, suddenly, they stopped all communication with the outside galaxy. They put up warning beacons around their entire territory. The message on these beacons is the same in every language. "This is human space. Entry forbidden. Violators will face consequences beyond your comprehension." The Korriban military representative, General Thex, stood up. He was a large, muscular being covered in thick brown fur. "What consequences?" he growled. "We have sent scout ships. They simply vanish. No debris, no distress signals, nothing. It is as if they never existed." Dr. Kiralen nodded. "That is correct, General. In 300 years, we have sent approximately 200 ships into human space. Not one has ever returned or even sent a single message back." "But why?" asked Ambassador Yilneth from the Stellar Federation. She was a small, bird-like creature with bright blue feathers. "What could make an entire species suddenly cut themselves off from the galaxy? What could make them so dangerous that even our most advanced warships cannot survive in their space?" "Nobody knows," Dr. Kiralen replied. "Some scientists think the humans discovered some terrible weapon and are afraid to use it. Others believe they encountered something dangerous and are protecting the rest of the galaxy from it. But these are just guesses." Commander Zethkri stepped forward again. "Honored Council, I do not ask this lightly. I know the risks, but my people face certain death if we do nothing. At least this gives us a chance." Council Speaker Mordan was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked around at the other council members. "What say you all? Should we approve this mission?" The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some council members argued that sending Zethkri to human space was the same as murdering him and his crew. Others said that every species had the right to try to save itself, even if the chances were small. Finally, the vote was called. It was close, but the council agreed to provide Zethkri with a ship and volunteers for his crew. "You will have the Void Seeker," Mordan announced. "It is our most advanced stealth ship. If anything can enter human space undetected, it is that vessel." Dr. Kira immediately volunteered to join the mission. "I have studied the humans for most of my career," she said. "If anyone can figure out what happened to them, I can." Over the next few days, other volunteers came forward. There was Lieutenant Vex, a Caribbean pilot who was known for being able to fly anything. Engineer Pol Tar from the Silicon Collective volunteered because he was curious about human technology. Navigator Zur joined because she was the best at finding paths through dangerous space. As the Void Seeker prepared to leave, Dr. Kira reviewed all the old records one more time. She studied pictures of humans from 300 years ago. They looked so ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft pink or brown skin, small eyes, no natural weapons or armor. How had such a weak-looking species become something so feared that even the mighty Caribbean Empire would not challenge them? The Void Seeker was a beautiful ship, long and sleek with advanced stealth technology that could hide it from almost any sensor. But as they approached the boundary of human space, even the ship's advanced computers could not tell them what they would find inside. The warning beacons were still there, sending out their message in dozens of languages. Commander Zethkri listened to the human voice speaking in Galactic Standard. "This is human space. Entry forbidden. Violators will face consequences beyond your comprehension." "Sensors show nothing," reported Lieutenant Vex from the pilot's seat. "No ships, no stations, no energy signatures of any kind. It is like there is nobody home." Dr. Kira found this very strange. According to the old records, human space should be full of colonies, space stations, and ships. Even if the humans had become dangerous, there should still be signs of their civilization. "Take us in," Commander Zethkri ordered quietly. The Void Seeker crossed the boundary into human space. Behind them, the warning beacons continued to broadcast their message to the empty darkness. Ahead of them lay the greatest mystery in the galaxy, and possibly the only hope for the dying Vorthan people. The Void Seeker moved slowly through the first star system inside human space. Commander Zethkri stood on the bridge, watching the main screen with growing confusion. According to their old star charts, this system should have been full of human colonies and space stations. Instead, they found something impossible. "I am reading 3 planets that should be heavily populated," reported Navigator Zur from her station. "But the energy readings show almost nothing. It is as if these worlds are completely empty." Dr. Kira studied her instruments carefully. "That cannot be right. The old records show that the planet called Haven had over 50 million human colonists. There should be cities, factories, orbital stations." Lieutenant Vex brought the ship closer to the planet Haven. What they saw on the main screen made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The planet was beautiful. Green forests, blue oceans, white clouds. But the huge cities that should have been there were gone. In their place were small ruins covered with plants and trees. "Take us into orbit," Zethkri ordered. "Let us get a closer look." As they orbited the planet, they could see the remains of what had once been a great civilization. Roads ran between areas where cities used to be, but nature had taken over everything. Massive buildings had been torn down so completely that only their foundations remained. Even more strange, this had not been done by war or disaster. Everything had been carefully dismantled. "Commander," Engineer Pol Tar called from his station, "I am detecting several orbital platforms, but they are all dark. No power, no life support, nothing." "Take us to the closest one," Zethkri said. The orbital station was huge, big enough to house thousands of people, but as the Void Seeker docked with it, their sensors showed that it was completely empty. The air was still breathable and the artificial gravity still worked, but there were no people anywhere. Dr. Kira led a small team to explore the station. They walked through empty corridors that should have been full of workers and families. The walls still had pictures and signs in human writing, but everything valuable had been removed. It was like walking through a museum of a dead civilization. What had been the station commander's office, Dr. Kira found something interesting. A computer terminal was still working, running on emergency power. When she accessed it, she found personal log entries from the last humans who had lived there. "Listen to this," she told the others over the radio. "This is from someone called Lieutenant Jake Morrison, dated almost 300 years ago. She played the recording. A human voice spoke in their language, but the words were strange. Day 15 since the protocol was activated. All civilian populations have been moved to the deep sites as planned. Only Guardian units remain in the outer systems to maintain the quarantine. I do not know if we will ever see our families again, but this is the only way to protect them. What is the protocol? Asked Lieutenant Vex. And what are these deep sites? Dr. Kirillin continued searching through the computer files. She found more references to something called the quarantine and mentions of Guardian units, but nothing that explained what they really meant. As they explored more of the station, Engineer Poltar made a disturbing discovery. Commander, you need to see this. The humans did not just leave this station. They took it apart piece by piece. Every piece of advanced technology has been removed. Even the main computer core is gone. They left only what they wanted us to find. Back on the Void Seeker, the crew continued their journey deeper into human space. System after system showed the same pattern. Planets that should have been full of life were empty except for ruins. Space stations drifted dark and silent. Massive construction projects had been abandoned halfway through completion, but Dr. Kirillin began to notice something that worried her. Commander, I think we are being watched. What do you mean? Zethkri asked. Our sensors keep detecting brief energy signatures, like someone is scanning us. But when we try to scan back, there is nothing there. Also, look at this navigation data. We have been choosing our own path through these systems, but somehow we keep ending up heading in the same direction. Lieutenant Vex checked the navigation computer. She is right, Commander. It is as if something is guiding us toward a specific place. Navigator Zur studied her star charts. If we continue on this path, we will reach a system that the old records call Terminal. It was supposed to be one of the most important human colonies. As they traveled toward the Terminal system, strange things began to happen. Sometimes their sensors would show massive ships nearby, but when they looked with their eyes, there was nothing there. Other times they would receive brief radio signals in human language, but the signals would cut off before they could understand what was being said. Dr. Kirillin spent hours studying the data they had collected. I think the humans did not just abandon this space, she told Commander Zethkri. I think they transformed it into something else. Look at this. She showed him her analysis. Every abandoned colony, every empty station, every half-finished construction project, they are all positioned in a pattern. It is like they turned their entire territory into some kind of machine, but we can only see the parts they want us to see. Engineer Poltar had been studying the technology they found in the abandoned stations. Commander, there is something else. The humans took all their advanced technology with them, but they left behind things that should not exist. I found power, systems that are more efficient than anything we have, but they are built to look like simple human technology from 300 years ago. What are you saying? Zethkri asked. I am saying that the humans had much better technology than they showed the galaxy. They were pretending to be less advanced than they really were. As the Void Seeker approached the terminal system, their sensors detected something that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. There was a massive structure orbiting the system's dead star, a sphere so large that it surrounded the entire star like a shell. That is impossible, whispered Navigator Zur. No species has the technology to build something like that. Dr. Kirillin stared at the readings. A Dyson sphere, a structure that could capture all the energy from a star. According to Galactic HFY science, such a thing was only theoretical. No civilization had ever built one. Commander, Lieutenant Vex reported, his voice shaking. We are receiving a transmission from that structure. It is in human language. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human woman. She appeared to be in her 30s, with short brown hair and green eyes. She wore a uniform that none of them recognized. But there was something strange about her eyes. They seemed much older than her face. Greetings, the woman said in perfect galactic standard. I am Captain Lisa Carter of the Human Guardian Corps. I have been waiting for you, Commander Zethkri. We need to talk. Commander Zethkri felt his blood turn cold. How did this human know his name? How did she know they were coming? You have questions, Captain Carter continued. And your people are dying from a plague that you believe we can help cure. You are correct about the cure. But you are wrong about almost everything else. If you want to save your species, you will need to learn the truth about why human space has been forbidden. The transmission ended, leaving the crew of the Void Seeker staring at a blank screen. They had come looking for empty worlds and abandoned technology. Instead, they had found that the humans had never really left at all. "Set course for that structure," Commander Zethkri ordered quietly. "I think we are about to learn why no species dares enter human space." The Void Seeker moved slowly toward the massive sphere that surrounded the dead star. As they got closer, Commander Zethkri realized just how huge the structure really was. It was larger than most planets, made of materials that their sensors could not identify. "Commander," reported Engineer Poltar, "this structure is generating more power than our entire home system produces. I do not understand how this is possible." Captain Lisa Carter's voice came over their communication system. Again. "You may dock with Platform 7. Do not worry about your ship's safety. You are under Guardian protection now." A section of the sphere's surface opened, revealing a docking bay that looked like it could hold 100 ships the size of the Void Seeker. But they were the only ship there. Dr. Kiralan looked at her instruments with confusion. "Commander, this docking bay has artificial gravity and breathable air for dozens of different species, including ours. How did they know what we would need?" As they walked off their ship, they were met by Captain Carter in person. She looked exactly as she had on the screen, a human woman who appeared to be in her 30s. But when Commander Zethkri looked into her eyes, he felt like he was looking at someone who had lived for centuries. "Welcome to Guardian Station Alpha," Carter said with a smile that seemed both friendly and sad. "I know you have many questions. I will answer them all, but first you need to understand something important. I am not entirely human anymore." She led them through corridors that were clearly built for many different types of beings. The walls showed pictures of dozens of alien species, including some that Commander Zethkri had never seen before. "These are all the species that the Harvesters have destroyed," Carter explained when she saw him looking at the pictures. "Over the past 1,000,000 years, they have consumed the populations of entire galaxies." "Harvesters?" asked Dr. Kiralan. Captain Carter stopped walking and turned to face them. "The reason human space is forbidden. The reason we withdrew from galactic civilization. The reason I have been waiting here for 200 years. She led them to a large room with a table surrounded by chairs built for different body types. On the walls were screens showing star maps and images that none of them could understand. "Please, sit down," Carter said. "What I am about to tell you will be difficult to believe." Commander Zethkri took a seat designed for his four-armed body. "Captain Carter, my people are dying. If you have information that can help us, please share it." Carter nodded. "The plague affecting your people is not natural, Commander. It is a weapon created by beings called the Harvesters. They use biological warfare to weaken species before they consume them." "Consume them?" Lieutenant Vex asked. "The Harvesters do not just kill," Carter explained. "They absorb everything that makes a species unique. Their intelligence, their culture, their evolution, their very existence. After they are finished, it is as if that species never existed at all." Dr. Kiralan leaned forward. "But why would they target the Vorthans? And what does this have to do with humans?" Captain Carter stood up and walked to one of the screens. It showed an image of creatures that looked like living shadows with too many eyes and teeth. 300 years ago, humans discovered that we were the Harvesters' primary target, not because we were the strongest or most advanced species in the galaxy, but because of something unique about human minds. She touched the screen, and it changed to show brain scans that meant nothing to the alien visitors. Humans have something the Harvesters had never encountered before: the ability to adapt and evolve at an exponential rate when faced with impossible challenges. They saw us as the ultimate prize. If they could harvest human consciousness, they would gain the ability to adapt to anything. Engineer Poltar made a sound of confusion. "But humans were not very advanced when they joined galactic civilization. Your technology was basic compared to most species." Carter smiled. But there was no humor in it. "That was intentional, Engineer. We were already much more advanced than we appeared. We had learned to hide our true capabilities because we had discovered something terrible." The screen changed again, showing images of dead solar systems and empty space where galaxies should have been. We found the ruins of civilizations that the harvesters had consumed. Entire galaxies turned into empty space. We realized that they were coming for our galaxy next, and that they had specifically identified humans as their target. So you withdrew from galactic civilization, Commander Zethkri said. We did more than that, Carter replied. We made a choice that no species had ever made before. Instead of running or trying to hide, we decided to become the bait in a trap, Doctor. Kira looked shocked. You made yourselves bait? Carter nodded. We evacuated our entire visible civilization. All the civilians, all the children, everyone who could not fight, were moved to hidden locations we call the deep sites. Only volunteers like myself remained behind as guardians. What makes guardians different? Asked Navigator Zerdok Captain. Carter walked closer to them, and for the first time they could see that something was different about her. Her movements were too precise, her reactions too fast, and there was something strange about the way light reflected in her eyes. We volunteered to be enhanced, she said quietly. We allowed ourselves to be changed into something that could fight the harvesters. We are still human in our hearts and minds, but our bodies and abilities have been upgraded far beyond what any natural human could achieve. Lieutenant Vex stared at her. How enhanced? Carter held up her hand, and suddenly, it was glowing with energy that made their skin tingle. I can process information at speeds that would make your fastest computers seem slow. I can exist in space without protection. I can fight in dimensions that your species cannot even see. And I have been alive for over 200 years waiting for this moment. The screen behind her changed to show the current galaxy map. Red dots appeared throughout the galactic rim, moving slowly inward. The harvesters are here, Carter said. They have been moving through the galaxy for the past 50 years, testing species with plagues and other weapons. The attack on your people was meant to force you to come looking for us. Commander Zethkri felt his heart stop. You mean we led them to you? No, Commander, Carter said with a gentle smile. We wanted you to come. We have been waiting for the harvesters to make their move so we could spring our trap. Your arrival means that the final phase of our plan can begin. Dr. Kira stood up from her chair. What plan? What have you been preparing for 300 years? Captain Carter walked to another screen that showed technical diagrams too complex for any of them to understand. The harvesters' greatest strength is their ability to adapt to any defense over time. No matter what weapons or strategies a species uses against them, they eventually learn to counter it. But we discovered something they had never encountered before. What? Asked Engineer Poltar. A species that can evolve faster than they can adapt, Carter replied. The visible guardians like myself are just the first layer of defense. The real human civilization has become something the harvesters cannot understand or counter. She turned back to face them, and her expression was both proud and sad. Humanity chose to evolve beyond our original form. We sacrificed what we were to become what the galaxy needed, a weapon that could permanently end the harvester threat. But the cost was that we could never return to being the simple species that first reached for the stars. The screens around the room began showing images of space battles and technologies that looked like magic. Tomorrow, the harvesters will emerge from their hidden dimension and attack this system. They expect to find an isolated human remnant that they can easily destroy. Instead, they will discover why no species dares enter human space, and why the galaxy should be grateful for our sacrifice. Commander Zethkri looked around at his crew. They had come seeking a cure for their people's plague. Instead, they had discovered that they were about to witness the most important battle in galactic history. Will you help us? He asked Captain Carter. She nodded. We will cure your people's plague, Commander. But first, you will see what humanity became to save everyone else. Captain Carter led Commander Zethkri and his crew through a transport tunnel that seemed to bend space around them. One moment they were on Guardian Station Alpha, and the next they were standing inside what looked like a small moon. Welcome to Deep Site 7, Carter said as massive doors opened in front of them. One of humanity's hidden cities. What they saw beyond the doors made everyone stop and stare. The inside of the moon had been completely hollowed out and turned into a city that stretched as far as they could see. But this was unlike any city they had ever visited. Buildings floated in the air without any visible support. Rivers of light flowed between structures that seemed to shift and change shape as they watched. The strangest thing was the people. They looked human, but they moved in ways that seemed impossible. Some walked on walls as if they were floors. Others seemed to fade in and out of view as if they existed in multiple places at the same time. Dr. Kiralen pulled out her scanner, but the readings made no sense. "Commander, I am detecting life signs, but they are unlike anything in our databases. These humans register as both individual beings and as parts of a larger collective consciousness." A man approached them who appeared to be in his 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. He wore simple clothing, but there was something about him that made Commander Zethkri feel like he was looking at someone very important. "I am Dr. Sam Rodriguez," the man said. "I was one of the architects of the Guardian program. Captain Carter asked me to explain what we have become." Dr. Rodriguez led them to a viewing area that looked out over the impossible city. 300 years ago, we faced a choice that no species had ever faced before. We could run from the harvesters and hope they never found us. We could fight them with conventional weapons and certainly lose. Or we could become something new. "How do you mean, become something new?" asked Engineer Poltar. Dr. Rodriguez gestured toward the city below them. "The harvesters' greatest weapon is their ability to adapt to any threat over time. They have consumed countless civilizations because, no matter what defenses those civilizations created, the harvesters eventually learned to overcome them." He led them to a laboratory where humans were working with technology that seemed to respond to their thoughts rather than their hands. "We realized that the only way to defeat an endlessly adaptive enemy was to become more adaptive than they were. So we enhanced our greatest strength, the human ability to change and evolve when faced with challenges." Dr. Kiralen watched in amazement as a human researcher seemed to merge with a computer system, processing information at impossible speeds before separating again. "The Guardians, like Captain Carter, represent the first stage of our evolution," Dr. Rodriguez continued. "They volunteered to be enhanced with quantum neural interfaces that allow them to think and react at superhuman speeds. But they are just the beginning." Lieutenant Vex pointed at a group of humans who seemed to be having a conversation without speaking. "What are they doing?" "Communicating through direct neural link," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "These individuals have chosen to enhance their consciousness to the point where they can share thoughts and memories instantly. They maintain their individual personalities, but they can also function as a collective when needed." Commander Zethkri felt overwhelmed by what he was seeing. "How many humans are there? I thought your species had only colonized 47 worlds." Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "The 47 worlds were just our visible colonies. We had already established over 3,000 hidden settlements throughout the galaxy before we withdrew from galactic civilization. Our true population is much larger than anyone realized." They walked through areas of the city where the very laws of physics seemed to work differently. Dr. Kiralen saw humans who appeared to exist in multiple dimensions at once, and others who seemed to manipulate matter with their minds. "This is impossible," she whispered. "No biological species can evolve this quickly." "You are right," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Natural evolution could never produce these changes in just 3 centuries. But we did not rely on natural evolution. We used technology to guide and accelerate our development." They entered a chamber where a woman who introduced herself as Dr. Amy Foster was working with what looked like pure energy, shaped into complex patterns. "The key was understanding that consciousness is not limited to biological brains," Dr. Foster explained. "We learned to expand human consciousness beyond the boundaries of individual bodies, while still maintaining what makes us essentially human." Engineer Poltar studied the energy patterns with fascination. "You have found a way to merge biological and artificial intelligence?" "More than that," Dr. Foster replied. "We have learned to exist as both individuals and as a collective consciousness. Simultaneously, each human can choose how much of themselves to share with the larger group mind, while still maintaining their personal identity." Dr. Rodriguez led them to another viewing area that looked out into space. But instead of seeing stars, they saw something that made their minds hurt to look at, structures that existed in dimensions they could not fully perceive. "The deep human civilization exists across multiple dimensional layers," he explained. "What you see here in this moon is just the 3-dimensional anchor point. The majority of our consciousness operates in higher dimensions that the harvesters cannot access or understand. Commander Zethkree tried to process what he was learning. You have become something beyond physical existence? Not beyond it, Dr. Rodriguez corrected. We still value our humanity, our emotions, our connections to each other, but we have expanded beyond the limitations that kept us vulnerable to the harvesters. Dr. Foster activated a display that showed the plague affecting the Vorthan people. This biological weapon was designed specifically to target your species' neural structure, but it also serves as a beacon that allows the harvesters to track infected populations. You mean by coming here we have led them to you? Lieutenant Vex asked with worry. Yes, Dr. Foster said simply. But that was the plan. We needed them to find us so we could end their threat permanently. Navigator Zur looked confused. But if you have become so powerful, why did you wait 300 years? Why did you not stop them before they could attack other species? Dr. Rodriguez's expression became sad. Because we had to be absolutely certain that we could end them completely. The harvesters have survived for millions of years by being extremely careful. They only reveal their true strength when they are confident of victory. We needed them to commit everything to attacking us. Captain Carter appeared beside them, moving so quietly that none of them had noticed her approach. The harvesters have taken the bait. Our sensors detect their main fleet preparing to emerge from their dimensional hiding space. They believe they have found an isolated human remnant that they can easily destroy. Dr. Foster smiled. But there was something frightening about her expression. They are about to discover what humanity sacrificed to become the galaxy's protectors. Tomorrow, they will learn why evolution is more powerful than adaptation. Commander Zethkree looked around, at the impossible city, at the humans who had become something beyond his understanding, and at the technology that seemed like magic. His people had come looking for a cure to their plague, but they had found something much more important. They had found the answer to a question that had puzzled the galaxy for 3 centuries. Why no species dared enter human space? It was not because humans were dangerous to other species. It was because they had become something so far beyond normal understanding that even looking at them too closely could drive other beings mad. But tomorrow, the harvesters would learn that some things were worth the sacrifice of becoming something inhuman, and the galaxy would finally be safe from the ancient threat that had consumed countless civilizations. Will we survive the battle? Commander Zethkree asked quietly. Captain Carter looked at him with eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. The question is not whether we will survive, Commander. The question is whether there will be anything left of the harvesters when we are finished with them. The battle began at dawn, though dawn had no meaning in the deep space around Guardian Station Alpha. Commander Zethkree and his crew watched from the observation deck of Deep Sight 7 as reality itself seemed to tear open. The harvesters emerged from their dimensional hiding place like a nightmare made real. Their ships were massive, dark things that hurt to look at directly. They moved in ways that defied physics, appearing and disappearing as they traveled through dimensions that normal minds could not understand. "How many ships are there?" whispered Navigator Zur. Captain Carter stood beside them, her enhanced senses reading the battle in ways they could not. Approximately 50,000 vessels, ranging from scout ships to planet killers. This is the largest harvester fleet ever assembled. They are committing everything to this attack. Dr. Kirilen watched her instruments with growing fear. Commander, each of those ships is reading as more powerful than our entire Galactic Council fleet combined. How can the humans possibly fight so many? Captain Carter smiled, and for the first time since they had met her, she looked truly happy. Watch and learn why humanity chose to sacrifice its original nature. The space around Guardian Station Alpha suddenly came alive. Ships appeared from nowhere. Not just a few ships, but thousands upon thousands of vessels that had been hidden in dimensions the expedition crew had not known existed. But these were not normal ships. The human vessels seemed to be made of light and energy rather than metal and ceramics. They moved like living things, flowing and changing shape as they engaged the harvester fleet. Some ships split into multiple smaller vessels, while others merged together to form massive weapons platforms. Impossible, breathed Engineer Poltar. Those ships are changing their fundamental structure during combat. No technology can do that. Captain Carter's eyes glowed with energy as she connected directly to the battle network. Human technology stopped being limited by normal physics 2 centuries ago. We learned to build ships that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. That real shock came when individual Guardians entered the battle. Captain Carter had mentioned that Guardians were enhanced humans, but seeing them fight was beyond anything the expedition crew could have imagined. A figure that looked like Captain Carter but moved impossibly fast appeared in space without any ship or protective gear. She engaged a harvester vessel that was larger than most space stations, moving around it like a dancer while firing weapons that seemed to tear holes in reality itself. "That is not possible," Dr. Kira Lenz said, her voice shaking. "No biological being can survive in space like that. Guardians are no longer limited by biological constraints," Captain Carter explained calmly, while her other self fought in the void. "We exist as consciousness that can manifest in multiple dimensions. Physical space is just another environment we can operate in." But the true revelation came when the deep human civilization revealed itself for the first time in 3 centuries. The space around the battle suddenly filled with geometric patterns that made the observer's eyes water to look at directly. These patterns were not ships or weapons. They were the visible manifestation of minds that existed in higher dimensions. The harvesters, who had been confident of victory against what they thought was a remnant human population, suddenly found themselves facing something they had never encountered in millions of years of conquest. Their adaptive abilities, which had allowed them to overcome every defense ever created, were useless against beings who could evolve new countermeasures faster than the harvesters could process them. Lieutenant Vex watched in amazement as harvester ships simply ceased to exist. They are not being destroyed. They are being unmade. Dr. Sam Rodriguez, who had remained with them to observe the battle, nodded grimly. The deep human civilization does not just defeat enemies, they unravel the very concepts that allow those enemies to exist. The harvesters are being removed from reality itself. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than an hour. The harvester fleet that had taken millions of years to assemble was systematically erased from existence. But more importantly, the humans were somehow reaching through dimensions to find and eliminate every harvester that had ever existed, across all realities and all times. Commander Zethkri watched the impossible display with a mixture of awe and terror. They are not just winning this battle. They are ending the harvester threat permanently. "Yes," Captain Carter said quietly. "This was always the plan. Humanity chose to become something beyond normal existence so that no other species would ever have to face the harvesters again." As the last harvester presence vanished from reality, the space around them became calm again. The human ships began to fade back into their hidden dimensions, and the Guardians returned to their stations. But the expedition crew knew they had witnessed something that would change their understanding of the galaxy forever. Dr. Elena Brooks, speaking for the Deep Human Collective, appeared as a shimmering image in the observation deck. Her form seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, making her difficult to look at directly. "Commander Zethkri," she said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, "your people's plague will be cured. We are transmitting the treatment to your ship's medical bay now." "Thank you," Zethkri replied, though he felt overwhelmed by everything he had witnessed. "But I must ask, why did you wait so long? Why did you let the harvesters attack other species before stopping them?" Dr. Brooks's expression was both compassionate and infinitely sad. "Because we had to be certain that we could eliminate them completely. The harvesters were careful creatures who had survived for eons by never fully committing to any single battle. We needed them to bring their entire civilization into this reality so we could end them permanently." Dr. Kira Lenz stepped forward. "What happens now? Will humanity return to galactic civilization?" "No," Dr. Brooks replied. "We have become something that would be dangerous for normal species to interact with directly. Our consciousness operates on levels that could accidentally damage or overwhelm biological minds that have not been enhanced." She gestured toward the space where the battle had taken place. "Human space will remain largely forbidden, not to protect the galaxy from us, but to protect other species from accidentally being changed by contact with what we have become." Engineer Poltar looked confused. "But you saved us. You eliminated the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. Why would you be dangerous to us? Captain Carter answered this question. Because we have the power to solve every problem, answer every question, and eliminate every threat that any species might face. But if we did that, we would rob other civilizations of the chance to grow and develop naturally. Navigator Zur finally understood. You are protecting our right to make our own choices, even if those choices lead to suffering. Exactly, Dr. Brooks said. We will remain as guardians against threats that no normal civilization could handle. But we will not interfere with the natural development of galactic civilization. As the expedition prepared to return to their ship and journey home, Commander Zethkri realized that they were carrying more than just a cure for their people's plague. They were carrying the answer to one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. The galaxy has spent 3 centuries wondering why no species dares enter human space, he said to Captain Carter as they prepared to leave. Now we know it was not because you were dangerous to us, but because you were protecting us from becoming dependent on beings who could solve all our problems. Captain Carter nodded. Humanity made a choice to sacrifice our original nature to become the galaxy's eternal protectors. We guard against threats like the harvesters, but we also guard against the temptation to make other species decisions for them. As the Void Seeker departed human space, Dr. Kira Len looked back at the warning beacons that marked the boundary. She finally understood their true message. They were not warnings to stay away because humans were dangerous. They were reminders that some sacrifices were so great that they deserved to be respected. The expedition returned to the Galactic Council with the cure for the Vorthan Plague and a new understanding of their place in the cosmos. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy. They had become its silent guardians, watching from the shadows and protecting all life from threats beyond normal comprehension. No species would ever dare enter human space again, but now they would know why. Not because they feared humanity, but because they respected beings who had given up everything they were to ensure that life itself could continue to flourish in the galaxy. The humans had become something beyond normal existence, but they remained humanity's children. They were proof that sometimes the greatest act of love was to sacrifice yourself so that others could remain free to choose their own destiny. In the end, Commander Zethkri realized that was the most human thing of all.